Hello, welcome to the Age of Sigmar Stat Center. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Owen Jackson. That's who I'm joined by. That's right, the Owen Jackson has joined me, and we've got a day or an hour of talking about Age of Sigmar coverage that's happened around the world, and from the events over the weekend, and upcoming events and other stuff. Can I just thank Alice the Menace for resubscribing on Twitch, and Inez Wilson, that was a bit earlier, and Aldum and Reef. You're all great. Thanks very much. Owen, welcome to the show. How are you, baby? You well?
Bit tired. Maybe not quite as tired as you, because you did like a full weekend's coverage and then another show. You madman. But yeah, I'm good. I've got that kind of post-Warhammer weekend kind of like glow of thinking of what I should have done better and, you know, reminiscing on good moments, bad moments, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's great. Yeah, I'm sure that lots of our viewers know how that feels. You know, that's that Monday trudge into work or whatever, but you're still remembering how your Maw Crusher bit Nagash's head off, or I don't know, you shouldn't have charged the Bloodthirster. There was a moment on Saturday, Rob, where genuinely someone was afraid of a Bloodthirster. I think I might have completed Warhammer at this stage now because that happened. It was I'm not going to summon onto your home objective. I'm going to summon another screen because I'm scared of that Bloodthirster.
Wow.
I'm kind of dining on that for the moment. But yeah, no, I'm good. Yeah.
As well as dining on the feasts of your enemies. Owen actually playing in the Copenhagen event that we're about to talk about, running Archeon. And I know he's got some great stories, which I'm excited to hear about, Owen. Like, I'm excited about those stories because some of them are particularly good. Yeah, and we did coverage all over the weekend. Like TTS playing at home in a 2-day event. Is this the first 2-day event you've played in on TTS?
Yes, yeah, and it's the first one that I've kind of come across. I think having spoken to players who come to Hammer Time events and other players, the 2-day weekend is quite a stretch with you know, homeschooling and kids and jobs and what have you. So really impressed with the Danish guys who put on a wonderful event, by the way. I'm really impressed that they got 50 people for 2 days. Like, it's a funny one. Sat behind a screen, I was having a conversation with a friend at the weekend about how you sort of miss the physicality of the Warhammer tournament. You know, you're not looking around and seeing how your pals are doing, and you don't have even just a trip to the loo and you catch your mate or you catch somebody that you've met at a tournament, and missing out on that. It's a very, like, I described it as like the Saturday night. Like, okay, you finished your game and that's it. Poof! It's like the plug being pulled out the back of Neo's head in the Matrix. You're plugged in for like 11 hours, and then like that, you're in a room on your own, and you've got to try and
exactly.
It's a funny one.
Yeah, no, exactly the same from doing the coverage. I'm in the little box, but normally when you finish in the little box or at the little desk or wherever you are in the world, you're out in the crowd, you're talking, someone's like, Rob, my Maw Crusher went in and did all of the impact hits. You're like, oh, fucking high five. Yeah, and you're like, it's great. But yeah, when you come away, like, that's not to say, like, I mean, that's just life at the moment. Eventually, we'll all be together again, and we will all get into one big naked puddle, and we'll all just kind of writhe around and have loads of like, it's gonna be the best. It's going to be super good. Can I just thank everyone in the chat? Can I thank Militant Snowflake for gifting a gift subscription in the chat? And can I say hi to so many lovely people in the chat? Nikos, Colonel Cabbage, Warhammer Rob, JP Stevens, Wargaming Dad, Nikki DeWilliams, I see you all. MJ Pegasus, my man. Iron Gutsman, I hope you're all well. Thank you to Cinderville Gaming for resubscribing. Can't wait to run 60 Liberators this weekend. Oh God, I can. I'm glad you're in Australia. That's an entire equator away from me giving a fuck about your list, which is good. Big thumbs. No, I hope it goes really well. Sorry, I'm very tired, so this is going to be very raw Rob today. You're going to get all the spice. Right, so let's talk about the weekend, Owen.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk through the ongoing events. We're going to touch on Butcher's Tribe later. We're going to talk about World's AOS. We're going to talk about upcoming events. But we're first going to talk about the event from the weekend. We did the list review show on Friday. If you guys want to go back and listen to that, I loved that. That was a super fun show. Really cool. That was fun. So one of the kind of conversations that came up over the weekend. I mean, you go first. You had something you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, it was just so obviously 50 players, like you say. Casper and Sven did a really good event. But I think when you looked at the meta and the fact that there wasn't that much Seraphon around, and there was a lot of Archaeons and a lot of Caradron Overlords and a lot of super powerful armies where, yeah, I don't know, I just got to the sense, and maybe it's because I was running around with Archaeon all weekend, and basically with Archaeon, you can basically kill half of somebody's army in one go like that. But yeah, it just feels like we're in the era of, I don't have any other term other than like blockbuster Warhammer. You can like just turn up at the table and your opponent's got one thing that he can do or two things that he can do or she can do, and they can tick half your army off in one go. And then you might be sat on the other side of the board going, my only chance in this game, much like Steve in the last game. I watched a little bit of that back. I mean, whether it was the best decision or not is I mean, he's a better game. He beat me at the weekend, so he's a better gamer than me. But he just pushed Archaeon into the middle of his opponent's army turn one because he knew that he couldn't win over the grind. And I just find that it's just like, it's very the game feels very dramatic at the moment. Again, my view on that may be tainted by the fact that I had a couple of such epic moments and epic interactions that maybe my view of it's tainted. But it just feels like, I don't know, it's very binary. There's not a lot of grey areas.
Well, actually, no, I think you've actually tied into kind of a thought that I'm having at the moment, which I tried to express over the weekend, actually. And it started from the list review show to some of the matches that we saw to some of the results to what you're saying now. So like a lot of what you're talking about, or a lot of what we talked about when we looked at the Archaeons play, is that they're a bully piece, that they're able to aggressively block. That's what we call it on the 40k show. But they're able to like control board space by being aggressive. That's how they control board space. Like, and I think that that's a real competent way of like putting that out there. Like, it makes sense, you understand it. Like, I'm controlling the board with threat. Ties into the idea that one of the things that I think that we saw over the weekend, or I think that we've seen over the course of the past few months on TTS coverage, is we've generally seen a move towards smaller MSU armies. Like, generally. Sometimes you see some big blocks, don't get me wrong at all, but like, you're seeing smaller pieces do more in some ways. And I know Archaeon isn't a small piece, but he's a singular piece. And there are loads of other other pieces in that unit. And where that comes up against your Blight Kings, your Billion Blade Guys, which 2 wins, by the way. Like, I'm going to go outside in a minute and like I'm going to 80s like jump in the air. That's how excited I am about those 2 wins.
Touch.
Yeah. That's how excited I am about those 2 wins. Is that there's DPS checks in the game as well, and how there's like that kind of sliding scale. There's these like multiple MSUs, like for instance the game me and Vince commentated where we saw Benjamin play with the daughters. I thought that against Blagan's Beast of Chaos was just a phenomenal game of light maybe isn't fair, but like, you know, like very small but like almost deadly pieces. And then that is a very different conversation versus Archaeon, versus 20 Hearthguard Berserkers, versus 20 Blight Kings. Like, and there's like a polar between the two. There doesn't seem to be much in the middle, if that makes sense. It's one or the other. And I think those playstyles kind of counter each other in a little way. And I think it was fascinating watching those. There's loads of other games that I actually would have liked to have played. Like KO are a good example of they can project power all in one place, but they don't want you to project all your power into their stuff ever. Like, they're like, leave us alone. They're constantly shimmying away. Anyway, so yeah, I can completely understand your point. I don't know if anyone else is.
No, I agree. I think it's interesting what you're saying there, because you've got like those two very distinctive different styles of game. And then I think it's much like when I first started playing, I played Sylvaneth and I played them so hard, and I got to the end of it and I was like, shit, I don't really know if I'm going to be able to play another army because Sylvaneth do this thing. And I think that KO are a very similar army in that regard, in that you're having to adapt to the way that they play. So there's MSU, there's these big powerhouse like the beatdown. You've talked about the beatdown before, and I think I understand what the beatdown is. Like Archaeon is always the beatdown, right? He's always the thing that's just going to be pushed in. And then you have these other armies that are operating outside, where effectively they're just going to do their thing. You know, Caradron Overlords are just going to do their thing. They're going to be bouncing around, and your opponent's going to have to. And I think Tzeentch, some of the way that Tzeentch are built, it's like just putting Kairos in the list and him having the ability to rig and amend one dice. It just changes the whole metric, because if you've got a play and you know that you're fast enough to get into the Tzeentch castle, like if I roll a 6/6 charge for Archeon to get him in, then they can just make it a 7. And then he fails, and then I lose my key piece. So there seems to be armies that you're always have, and Seraphon are the same. You have to figure out how you're going to work around Seraphon. I'm not sure if that is going to be coalesced into a particularly cogent thought, but yeah, it does seem like I say, blockbuster Warhammer, and that is good and bad. It makes dramatic moments, but it also means that you can turn up to a table and sit down in front of somebody and go, okay, well, I'm going to lose. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've lost unless I do this one thing or whatever.
Well, I mean, I'd always encourage you to genuinely, like I do, consider everyone else to be ignorant and stupid, so that you're gonna like just be like you're gonna lose, like not your army's gonna win. That's always a good sort of put. But like one of the things that has fascinated me, having come off a conversation with Neil and Tom last night and looking at pairings for 40k WTC events, is very much like how armies want to play. How does my army want to play versus how does the other army want to play, and then seeing that and how those metas like change, and also how they're different, and that kind of like visualization of like look, this is what we want to play. Very much like we saw with Steven's last game against Antu. Like he was like, what I do is I make this aggressive play. Like I do, this is what I do. What are you gonna do? And it's like, and that's what, like, he plays it that way. He doesn't try and change up his script, and he knows how to play that way really well, which I think is honestly really fascinating. And it reminds me always, I mentioned this yesterday, it reminds me always of the conversation when the new Uruk Warclans came out, and I had Leo on the show and I had Nathan on the show. And Leo was like, oh my God, how good are our boys? You can build this like defensive, screening, blocking army, make a defensive Maw-Crusher. And Nathan was like, you can make the most aggro Maw-Crusher in the world, Rob. Yeah, and you can like get in people's face early. And those two different ways to play exactly the same army really makes me like very like impressed with how adaptable some of the Age of Sigmar armies are in some ways. And then some of the armies are not adaptable at all. The Ziflin, I'm going to put this down, only plays that way. Like, and if you can counter it, then you're in a good spot. But like, I don't think that was a cogent thought either. But let's carry on.
Man, it's post Warhammer weekend. Like, it's post tournament Monday. We're not going to make any cogent thoughts. We're probably going to say something that offends somebody, and that's fine. I would say one thing that's very interesting. Like, I played a lot of table tennis before this. My previous obsession before Warhammer was table tennis, and in that you have there's a lot of ways that you can express yourself and play the game. Like, playing the game in different ways is really interesting. Like in Asia, you get players that hold the bat like a pen bat, and they play very differently to players that play with, you know, traditional sort of Western grip, like a hammer grip. But fundamentally, they're always playing with the same tools. They're playing the same game, but they're playing with the same tools. But there is room for you to express your personality or play in a different way. I think Warhammer is really interesting that we're all playing the same game, but it really doesn't feel like it sometimes. We've got completely different tools to try and achieve our goals and win the game. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it feels like your opponent's playing a different game to you, right? Like these siege lists with Kairos. I mean, Alan joins his list. I think people have mentioned it. Gutsman in the chat has mentioned like his list, like Archeon, Kairos, and Bellicor all together. Like they're playing a completely different game to somebody that's going to turn up, let's say, with an Auric Warclans list with a mega, you know, big war, mega boss on Maw-Crusher, 6 pigs, 20 yard boys, and some brutes or something. Like they're complete. I think I'm being even less cogent than before, Rob, and we're running out of time. Shall I stop now? I think I'm going to stop.
I mean, I'm not running out of time, but if you got somewhere to be, then we should move on. But like, I could generally waffle about this for about 8 hours. It's fascinating, and I think some of those things from the weekend. Go back and watch some of the matches. I think the first match was really interesting. From that match we saw all the Blight Kings versus Umetrica. They didn't have the output, which is fascinating as a parallel to the final game, where you have Archeon, who's like, you have all the 4th and 5th games. You have Archeon versus Lumineth, and Lumineth like don't really have the output to deal with that Archeon fella, yeah. And then Antu, like the Flamers are like, he's dead. we got to murder this guy, but we have to keep them safe. This is the only output in the list, and I think those like key pieces in the list are always so interesting. But yeah, like, and I think I think it was Luke in the chat or someone else, Like, and I think what you were saying as well, like it feels very polar. It feels very 1 or 0. You will delete the thing or you will not delete the thing. Like that's how it feels. Like, and I feel like it's felt like that for a while, but very interesting. Like attrition doesn't feel very relevant sometimes anymore. But you've got to pass those DPS checks, and if you can't, like you're done. Because some of it's like, and that's what Pink Horrors are so good for. I think that's why we always see Zinch do so well. They're a huge DPS check that we rarely talk about. They're like they're 50 wounds that's immune to battle shock because you've got a CP somewhere. Like they're amazing. They're so good. They're so good. Like time and again, I see them play. I'm like, God damn, that's brilliant. Yeah. Anyway, right. So should we talk about the? No, I want to know. Owen, you ran Corn this weekend. Tell me what happened. Talk to me about your games. I'm hyped for this.
Now, can this be a side note? Can we cover the actual real winners?
No, I want to... Okay, Twitch chat, decide. Do we want to talk about the actual event or all and everything that happened with Owen for 4 to 7 hours? Your choice. Yeah.
I'll give you a couple of things. Have you got my picture, Rob? If we're going to do it, have you got my picture?
I will go get your picture while you waffle on. Owen, only Owen. I only want to hear about Owen. Just Owen. Only Owen. All Owen all the time. Owen Sword Owen. There you go.
Okay. Sweet. Okay. Well, in that case, I will give you my blow-by-blow. So I took Reapers of Vengeance, Archeon Corn, something I've taken for about 6 months now, and it's fucking brilliant. It's a brilliant way to play the game. It's kind of... I wouldn't really want to play too many games practicing with this list, because basically you insert Archeon into their army, and then perhaps they've got some stuff left to win the game with. But other than that, it's talking about the binary nature of the game again, Rob. You know, you juice up Archeon, you put lots of coins in the back of him, and he then goes and eats loads of stuff. And hopefully then it doesn't matter that you haven't got many troops. So it's very light on bodies. Morton, who I will get to, strangely, we've never spoken, but we ended up with very, very similar lists. So, and obviously you've seen, was it Joel McGrath one in Australia with an Archeon Corn? So it is a thing. Everyone says, it's always fun to hear old man stories. Cheers, JP.
All right, JP. What you haven't retold that story of doing them crawlers against Tony 1,800 times? You know you have, JP.
It's because it was amazing, though, Rob. Right?
It was amazing. It was great. I've told that story at least 7 or 8 times.
Me too, man. I mean, I've still got a boner for it. No jokes.
Like a year later.
Yeah, exactly sweet baby Nagash getting bullied. Anyway, yes. So basically, it's Reapers of Vengeance. I forego the Blood Secretor, much to some people's surprise, but I think that generally you're throwing Archeon so far forward. So to give you the TLDR, is that the correct term, Rob?
Mm-hmm.
The
nailed
TLDR
it. Absolutely nailed
of the list. Essentially, there's a War Shrine and a Bloodstoker and a Slaughter Priest, and they will then buff Archeon to Fury. I have 2 units of Untamed Beasts to screen out against alphas and shooting because it's only 6-drop. 3 units of Reavers, Slaughter Priest, Bloodstoker, and it basically gives Archeon. It gives him a 29-inch threat range, which is free of dice. So it's effectively like I'm playing Zinch, but then an Archeon can pile in and attack twice. So the way he gets that 29-inch threat range is he moves 14, he runs 6, you've whipped him with the Bloodstoker, so he runs 9, and then the Unfettered Fury Bloodthirster allows him to pile in 6. So it gets around Fangs of Sotek, it gets around all the things that happen at the end of the charge phase, like KO bombs, handgunners shooting, all that jazz. So it's just this, and then you've got Blood Tithe to move him around and summon, and it's just great fun. So yeah, if anybody wants to have fun and wants to play Archeon, I would recommend Slanesh or Khorne over Zinch. Zinch is the most powerful, but we'll get to why in a second. But yeah, basically, I had 5 fantastic games. I started off with James Brown. He not the soul singer, unfortunately, but a lovely, lovely man. He played Anvil Guard, you know, the list, Rob, where he wants to get Archeon's. So his threat range, yeah, he takes the save time to 0, and then he hoses everything off with. And they've got a 29-inch threat range, Rob, because it's really cool. The Sorceress allows them to run and shoot.
The Dark Shards. Yeah,
exactly. The dark
there's almost a list always. Steve Dooley, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But there's almost always a list with the old dark elf elements. And then you put it on tail when you're like, ah, like they just miss a thing. But yeah, like it's always fun to play, and I like seeing people try it.
Yeah, and he basically, his threat range on that was 29. Archeon's threat range was 29, but I outdropped him. So effectively, in deployment, I was able to not show my hand, and it pushed him back. We played focal points, and basically, I was just able to control things, and we had a great time. But I just think that he was a bit too regressive. Shout out to James, actually, because he went 0-5, and he put a really nice message in the Copenhagen chat just saying what a great time he had. He didn't care about going 0-5. He'd learned lots about Warhammer. And I think we often talk so much about these top tables and who dwell, but, you know, having somebody go 0-5 and have a great time and like straight away wanting to write new lists and stuff, like I think that's awesome. That shows how good the game is.
Agreed. Like I wish there was a way or more time, or there was like it's one of the things I'm thinking about. Obviously, and we're going to get to events and coverage. We're going to talk more about that later. Like, I'm always conscious. That's why we've always done the infield reporter. You know, like, hey, this thing's happening on table like 43. You're like, what was it? Like this amazing thing, like amazing. Like I think the stories. I think oftentimes one of the reasons we spend 2.5, 3 hours playing these games is for the story, for the moment. Yeah, you'd be like, you don't like I won is rare. Yeah, because you rarely like you'll talk about the moment you did that thing, and you'll be like, I remember playing Colin Cochrane, and I was playing my Chaos Dwarfs, which is his Fire Slayers. Here's an old man story for you. We were playing on, I can't remember what, but it was basically something where if he got his Fire Slayers onto the objective first turn, he wins, or like second turn or something, he wins. And then all I did was
like every Fire Slayers game, then basically.
Like every Fire Slayers, yeah. But I used my Demon Smith, so I made it so that they couldn't run. So that they were just walking there 4 inches, and I think I did something else to slow their movement as well. And he was like, "This fucking sucks." But then I ended up with toothache so bad, or a headache or something, that I just quit the game. I was like, "Colin, I feel like shit." He came outside, had a lovely chat with me. I don't even know what we like. Did I write a win on his sheet? I don't remember. I just remember that was so funny because he was so angry. He was just like, not like not angry like aggressively angry, like fuck no. Anyway, I don't know if he won or lost or whatever, but I just know he's a great human being, and that was my favourite thing to do ever. It was great. Yeah. Anyway, but the stories are good.
Exactly. We're here for this. Other people have said that to me this morning because there is a big story coming round 5. Anyway, so round 1 against James, Archeon powered up. He basically killed the whole army except for 3 Aether Wings because they didn't go towards a secondary. And in a double activation, I put a Hurricanum, an Azeros, and a Sorceress in the sword all at the same time. It was pretty full in there. But by the time the Sorceress jumped in, she could only just about fit. She's just like, you know, her top bobble was probably just in the tip of the sword. Just like
How big is that sword? Like Mary Poppins' back. It's just like, what's in here?
Well, yeah, come the end of the weekend, definitely. So yeah, that was that. I think it was 19-1, and we had a lovely time. It's perfect, you know, like that perfect first game of the weekend. So round 1, 19-1. I feel like I'm good at Warhammer because Archeon just re-rolls everything, and it's brilliant. Then I rolled into Tzeentch Archeon. So I played Steve Follows in the next round, and after the game, he reckoned that I had the advantage because I outranged him there, but I was just scared of Kairos. He was playing, as people saw on the stream, Archeon, Kairos, Pinks. That was pretty much it.
Go watch. Brave Shaman.
Yeah. Brave Shaman. So he did. I had obviously lots of magical defense, so I did feel okay with that. But he was able to devolve Archeon forward on turn 1, but not close enough to be able to then charge him. Because yes, this is it. Cheater dice. He had 4 6s in his Destiny dice, Rob.
Which is really funny because actually we watched him on game 4. We had him on stream. He rolled 5 2s, no 1s, and no 6s.
I need to change my shirt because I've got so much blood coming out of my heart for him. Hold on.
Bless him.
Sorry about that. cleaned all that blood out. There we go.
So I'm sorry.
Sorry, no. So anyway, yeah, I gave him first turn. What he did though, he devolved me out of range of some of my buffs, and then I took the turn, and I was super defensive. I created 2 layered screens. I thought I had Archeon outside of 26. I had him at 26.5 or 26.3, but then basically here we go. The world's smallest violin plays for his destiny dice. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, he was then able to. He won priority. We're playing on Total Conquest, so I dominated one half the board, he dominated the other, and yeah, I made a mistake, and he basically was able to clear the 2 screens out the way, just to the point where he had 3 models left, and then he auto 6 the charge, and then auto Slayer and then charge. He auto 6 the charge to charge a Blood Reaver, to then pile round the Blood Reaver to hit Archeon, and he auto 6 the Slayer of Kings, and I jumped in his sword. And was really annoyed with myself for a little while, but then I brushed myself off and I took it all the way to turn 5 with some shenanigans, and that was the game where he was scared of a Bloodthirster, so I was pretty happy with that.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was all right. I got a point out of it. I got one of my secondaries, and but I was a bit disappointed. And again, that goes to the blockbuster idea of Warhammer. I made one mistake by half an inch, and I lost 800 points of my army on turn 2 before I'd had a turn. So it's kind of the punishment for mistakes is really horrible. Like, you don't screen out a character timely and they get shot off by KO boats.
I mean, one of the key points there is the Destiny dice, and like Natch is saying in the chat, I've never played against it. Like, if you played with it, you feel like a golden god. Like, you feel like the game is so different, like so polarizingly, like I can do as opposed to I might do. I still don't think. I think probably the change should just be that they change it to rerolls, but that's a whole different conversation for another show. It's such a strong, guaranteed mechanic, which is why I think you do see Tzeentch so well. And we saw Stephen actually play game 4. He saved until turn 4. He saved like a 5 and a 4 for a 9-inch charge from a deep strike from a summon. And again, that's such a clutch. The amount of times we've done coverage and we've seen someone summon a unit or deep strike a unit, and they need that 9 onto the objective to get the win. Knowing that that's available, knowing you can, it allows you to do the summon beforehand. So viable. And then that guaranteed 12-inch charge makes Archeon's threat range just wild. And then, like you say, guaranteeing he can put something large in the sword. Even Nagash doesn't have that, right? Nagash hasn't got that, I will definitely. He's got 50-50. I'm gonna turn you to dust. So yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting. And he put your Archeon on his base, which he carried around for the rest of the event.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly happy about that, I'm joking. That was fine. That was cute. He actually put him on his base for the remainder of our game, and he said, yeah, he's got in the sword, and then Archeon's pooped him out, and he was sat beneath Dorgar's bottom, which was, I felt like I was getting abused a little bit there. No, but Steve's a gent, and I learned a lot playing Steve. Knowing he goes for it. He'll be I see this play. It's not got a huge chance of success, but if it does go off, it will be super impactful. And he just goes for those things, and I respect that. So anyway, 1-1. And then I rolled into John Cately. I've played John a load of times. He often wins best sports because he's a lovely, lovely man. I think he's from one of the Age of Chumps club in the Midlands, maybe. I'm not sure 100%. Yeah, but top fella and a really good Iron Jaws player. So I rolled into Iron Sons on Blade's Edge. And he outdropped me, so he had his threats were 6 pigs, 10 brutes, and a mega boss on Maw-Crusher. So he basically put 6 pigs on one flank, the Maw-Crusher on the other, 10 brutes in the center. Took first turn, teleported 10 odd boys to one flank, supported by the pigs, and just kind of tried to pin me in. But I was able to. Archeon basically ate the 6 pigs on the first turn. He killed half the Ard boys, and then I won the turn, and Hero Phase activated Archeon to kill the rest of the Ard boys. He then went and killed the 10 brutes, and then from that point, I was feeling I was really good. But to be fair, the Iron Jaws, if people think that Iron Jaws or Destruction is kind of just get some buffs up and fly forward. There's some serious tech in that Iron Suns. Every time they do damage, they can move D6 inches at the end of the phase and charging at the end of your phase. He doubled me from 3 to 4 and really cleaned up, and I was really worried. And then basically, at the start of my turn 4, I had Archeon left. And this is a note to everybody out there, and I don't care if it kicks me in the balls, but if you want to beat any Archeon list, just kill everything else. Just kill everything else. Corn
They can't
Archeon.
score.
Yeah. Corn Archeon. Kill the War Shrines, kill the chaff. Whatever.
I think that's one of the significant differences between the Khorne Archeon lists and the Tzeentch Archeon lists, because like you've got Blood Reavers or whatever you've got knocking around, and they're like, cool, I got 10 pinks, and you're like, and 10 pinks have got some good output, like in shooting, I think in some ways, but they definitely are like if you hit them, they're scoring more on an objective, not less. They're so viable. So like there's a very different kind of like setup in those kind of like in those armies in some ways. So yeah, did you end up being able to win that event?
I won that game. Yeah. I won that.
Game. Sorry.
Yeah. So what happened was I only had Archeon left, but and I had the choice of deleting some objectives, but I kept them on the board. So basically, at the start of my turn 4, I had Archeon, and he had a wizard, 3 brutes, and the mega boss on Maw Crusher, and I was just able to manipulate it, whereby I killed some troops, summoned to cap all the objectives, and then won the turn and was able to just kill everything. So it was super tight, and I thought, I hate that mission, Rob. I know you don't like it, but I keep getting like. I understand more about myself as a late game kind of player now, especially because I play armies that summon, and I like that late game hustle. And Blade's Edge just is the kind of mission that just feels like it's slipping away from you if you're not capping. Like sometimes in some games you're like, oh, I didn't get an extra guy on that objective, or I should have activated there first and I've lost a couple of points. Oh, never mind, I'll make it up at the end. Like Blade's Edge, if you make those mistakes, then you're fucked, I think.
Yeah, I just think it's polarizing. I think some armies can just get on all the objectives turn 1, and your opponent can't push them off. They can't push them off till turn 3, and it's just all over. I think Archeon's pretty much an exception to that. Just a quick question that we had from Konstantinos. I'm going to make sure I ask it because he put it in here. Hey Owen, I have an important question about your list. I've been playing BuffCon list forever, so buffing Archeon. I was the 4-1 Khorne Rov BuffCon last February in Sweden. So, question about the Fury Thirster. Do you think that he is integral? Because I feel he's a trap expensive and easy to remove. Compare him to the Stoker.
He is. I think he's integral now. I've played this list before with like a Demon Prince to stop people charging and stuff, but I just think the fact that you can run and retreat out of combat and then pile in 6 like a giant Sister of Slaughter. Yeah. It's basically like having a giant Sister of Slaughter that can go twice. I think you can look after the Thirster, especially if you take Untamed Beasts and screen and stuff like that. And then effectively you can make Archeon be something that your opponent can't avoid. I think the fact that you don't need to charge is awesome. Like just that 6-inch pile. I think even if you don't use it in every game, there's going to be times when it comes in clutch. So it did come in clutch in my game 4, which we can go on to as an example of it coming in clutch, if you like. So obviously 2-1 after the first day. So on game 4, I rolled into Luke Willoughby, which was Luke that Casper gave a shout out to in the list show. Quite a new player, Fire Slayers player, but I played him with our lists as a prep for this tournament. So it was this, and he beat me. So this is a rematch. So this is Fire Slayers, Hermdar, Lords of the Lodge, 2 units of 20 with the poleaxes. So 6s to hit, doing 2 mortals, which isn't great into Archeon. So I do have that, making him reroll his 6s. But he plays it uniquely in that he has like triple Rune Smiter. And then he keeps and some Aether Wings and some Volkites. So he keeps the 2 big blocks off the board with Rune Smiters, and then the Rune Father's command ability, which is +1 to charge in a bubble wholly within 12. You can spam it. So he brings them up, spams the CP, and then charges. But basically, this was forcing the hand. I deployed in kind of a bubble around 2 objectives and left 1 lightly defended. He did effectively the same on the opposite side. I gave him turn 1 because I thought I'd screened okay. And yeah, he just went for it. He brought both units of 20 Hearthguard up, either side of his Rune Father and his Smiters behind, spanned all the CP, and the the block. So they were on a 7-inch charge, and he failed a 7. He spammed 2 CP to get +2 to charge on everything, and then he failed the 7-inch charge even with a reroll.
Heartbreak.
Yeah, he did get in the other block of 20, but he was able to just blow up a load of screens. And then that meant that on my turn, if people wanted some cool plays, like corn plays, I did a couple of cool things. So obviously the Rune Father gives a -1 to wound bubble wholly within 12. So I found that in the game that I lost against Luke, that -1 to wound is so debilitating against Archeon, against most things, to be fair. So I bloodbound, rather than blood boiling, I used the Slaughter Priest to bloodbind the unit, much like people have been using Devolve in these Bray Shaman lists. So I used the bloodbind to pull him out of the 12-inch bubble, because I knew then that Archeon could eat them. So I did that. Archeon killed all but one Hearthguard Berserker was left. And this is where the 6-inch piling came in clutch, because I won the double. I took it because I knew that I could really hurt him. And what that meant is I wasn't able to kill one Hearthguard Berserker in the hero phase, so it allowed me to run and retreat Archeon out of combat and then pile him in 6 into another target later. Without that run and without that bloodthirster that can allow me to pile in, Archeon would have been tagged by a single. But his name's Carl, actually. It is Carl. Luke would be pissed off with me if I didn't name check him. Carl, the fucking Hearthguard Berserker, would have tied up 800 points of my army. And my basically, he would have tied up my army for my turn if I didn't have the ability to run out of combat and then pile back in 6 into the other unit. So that was clutch. And then, later in the same, I got the double, and on the double, I did the cool thing. Like Steve, I did it the Steve Follows way. I summoned the Wrath Axe. I targeted the Rune Father because he was 18.5 inches away, and I hit him with the axe, and I rolled a 6 on the damage and just one-shotted the Rune Father. Yeah, anyone who's played Fire Slayers and knows that little ginger bastard in the middle of making all your stuff crap. It was wonderful. I felt really bad, and Luke said, well, there's the game. And then Archeon ate the big unit, the other unit of Hearthguards, down to about 7, and we called it. So it was pretty rough. He had bad luck not getting those. Again, talking about Tzeentch, being able to just go, okay, I'm 9 away, I am going to charge you. Like mere mortals, it's a dice game. You're going to roll a 4 into a 3 sometimes, aren't you? So even with those buffs. So Luke had very poor luck, and then it was massively compounded by my good luck, winning the double, popping the Rune Father, eating everything. It was quite a hard one, but Luke's great guy, and we had a really good chat after the game, and he always asks what he could have done better and stuff. So that was it, 3-1, Rob. I was in heady territory. I was starting to have a little nose.
You're in danger zones now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking KO, I'm thinking Tzeentch, I'm thinking maybe there's a Blight King's list rocking around doing really well. But no, it was the Khorne Archeon Mirror, Rob.
Yeah, it was. And Morton, who we talked about and got hyped up on the show on Friday. So very excited to hear about Morton. And also a Khorne Archeon Mirror. Who would have expected that? Super fun. Were you enthused to play the mirror? So when we did a mirror match. I guess it was a mirror match, not really. Tzeentch versus Tzeentch as the final. And someone logged in and was like, oh, mirror match, I'm not watching this. I was like, actually, I think that these are in some ways fascinating. The mirror match we had on wasn't a mirror match. It was just 2 Tzeentch armies, but they were very polar and different. This is more of a very, very similar mirror.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Well, we both got really excited. I initially was a bit trepidatious about it. I was just like, oh, do I want it? I don't want him to do my thing. You know what? When you're you have your army and you identify with it, and they do certain things. Like for me, it's the blood tithe and the shenanigans and the output. And it was like, well, that's my thing, and you're going to get to do that. And how do you? Basically, it was like shit. I can now see what all my opponents have to deal with, and it's pretty bloody awful. But yeah, so I was hyped. It was table 4, round 5, and it was Khorne versus Khorne Archeon. And literally, I had 2 units of Untamed Beasts in my list and a Wrath Axe, and he had an extra War Shrine and the Bleeding Icon. That was the only difference in the lists. So we both had 6-inch pile-ins. We could both pile in and attack twice. We both got buffs for days. His buffs were slightly better than mine because he had the double War Shrine. But yeah, I was pretty excited, and we were both Khorne fanboys at the start, being a bit giddy, and I think that this is the interesting point here, Rob. Outside of the big drams, it's like I could have played the game much better, but I'm an emotional guy. I think yourself and the viewers will see that, and we all let our emotions bleed into the way that we play, and whether that be positively or negatively or whatever. And I was just like, Khorne Archeon versus Khorne Archeon. Well, they've just got to kill each other, right? They've just got to both get in the sword. They've got to get in each other's swords and be happy. So I can just imagine these two swords in the like kind of wanging away, and they're like with all full of Archeon energy and Dorgar. So yeah. Anyway, he was 5 drops. I was 6. We played Border War much like everybody did. He obviously deployed to give me the turn. So I deployed offensively, and I did this cute trick, which is a way that I mitigate against losing the turn, which is effectively or mitigate against. I want to do stuff. I don't want to just sit there, get my buffs up and screen, because if he doubles me, he just blows me up. So I deployed Archeon on the line, buffed him up. I got Blood Sacrifice off, and that allowed me to fly forward, blow up 2 of his units of Blood Reavers, and then use 3 Blood Tithe to go back. So I use him like a wave sometimes. He goes in, blows stuff up, and then at the start of my opponent's turn, I use 3 Blood Tithe and move him back. And because he keeps the Bloodstoker buff, he can run 29 inches back.
And then just fly back over your own screen.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I should have gone all in and put him all the way back behind the screen. But I was like, nah, I'm going to bait him into coming and fighting my Archeon. So I put By My Will, which meant that Archeon fought when he dies, if in that battle round. And I put my Bloodthirster and Archeon right next to each other with a lovely big gap saying, come on in, Morton. The water's red, and you're gonna have a fucking great time. So come on in, baby. Come on in. And he was going, nah, this is a stupid idea. I don't want to do it. And then he did it. He got his buffs up, moved a few things around. Because I was like, I dominated the board. He had 1 unit of Blood Reavers versus my 3 units of Blood Reavers and 2 screening units of Untamed Beasts. So I had the board, and I had quite a lot of shit in the way. So he was like, all right, let's go. And yeah, he did it. He buffed him up. He came in, first activation, all the rerolls. So for those that don't know, when you've got all the Khorne buffs on in the way that we build it, it's 2s rerolling 1s on the Slayer of Kings to hit, and then it's 3s rerolling everything. And if he rolls 2 6s, it doesn't matter whether you've got 1 wound or 100 wounds. You're getting in the sword. You're getting in the Slayer of Kings, and you're going to stay there, and you're going to be happy. So he's on 2s rerolling 1s, and then 3s rerolling to wound. He goes in, first activation, doesn't do it. Not a scratch. A few little chip wounds, but I think maybe did 4 wounds. And I can imagine his bumhole was getting a little bit tweaky then. He was getting a bit of a racketeer in his voice. Morton was getting a little bit stressed. So he was like, okay, second activation. It's going to happen this time. On the wounds, he rolls a single 6. He picks up his 3 other dice. Bosh, double 6. He goes mental. I've got like Dane's going mental down the phone because he's sat next to all the TOs and the organisers.
Yeah.
In like this little, like their little Danish.
They had a LAN party, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. So he's going mental, and I'm like, right, well, sweet. I haven't got a CP. I'm not fighting twice. I'm only fighting once, but I'm going to put your Archeon in my Archeon sword, even though he's currently inside your sword. He's then going to jump out, get. That's the thing. They got in the same sword. I don't even know. Anyway.
I love that you've thought about this. Wait, are they in the same sword? Are there 2 swords? Is Archeon in it, or is Drogbart in it as well? Like, yeah, okay. I love this.
So I've only got 4 attacks. I get all my hits. I roll my wounds. I get 1 wound, 1 6 to wound. So I pick up my 3 other dice.
Yeah.
And I get it with a triple 6, not even a double 6 roll.
Oh,
triple
wow.
6. So I think I win, really and truly, I win. But yeah, it was amazing. My neighbours probably heard about it. Yeah, we were like laughing and crying and questioning what we did, and yeah, and then I won the turn. To be fair, and I fucked it. Basically, this is how Khorne it all became. I won the turn. My Bloodthirster went up. It killed some stuff. I cleared some screens. I was feeling like King of Warhammer at that point. I was like, my stupid play worked. He came in. He took the bait. I killed his Bloodthirster. I killed his Slaughter Priest. He had no troops. He just had 2 War Shrines and a Bloodstoker, and 10 Blood Reavers. But yeah, he did the Khorne thing, Rob.
Yeah.
He saved all his Blood Tithe up whilst everything was dying. His was ticking up. and he did the meme. He summoned an insensate rage bloodthirster, who then made a 9-inch charge, who blew up everything on one objective, and then he won the double, and then he blew up everything on my home objective, and then I had a Bloodstoker, 8 Reavers, and an injured bloodthirster, and he won the game. I was way up on points, but yeah, that summoned bloodthirster who then went in. So moral of the story is that Morton used his blood type better than me. I was doing silly little tricks trying to run away from things, and I should have just got a bloodthirster. That would have been the best, actually.
I think no one in the history of Warhammer said I should have just got a bloodthirster, other than someone that's played like 3 games and is like, they look scary and big, I could use that.
But yeah, we had a big.
I think if someone genuinely walked up to me in a gaming place and was like, "I just needed another thirst," I'd be like, "I'm not talking to you ever again. I'm just going to walk away. I can leave it."
But it was amazing. Like we were both in shock for about half an hour after both our Archaeons died, and we were like, "Right, let's play a proper game of Warhammer now." But yeah, the irony of getting the insensate rage, who then went and boomed everything off, because obviously Border War, he was able to go from one of the side objectives to my home objective and just decimate everything. And I tried to scrabble a bit, and I was way up on points, but we knew that I would. So I lost that 17-3. If I'd have won and not been such a mug, because the real play is I had so much movement to do the movement of Archaeon way behind all my screens. And then he can come in and commit and try and kill my bloodthirster, and then I can go and kill Archaeon. But anyway, I'm not going to ever forget that game or that moment, so I don't really care. I came 13th, top of the 3-2s, near the top of the 3-2s, whatever.
Yeah.
But
I don't think that matters, because I think this conversation is a conversation that will reverberate through different gaming clubs. Obviously, people will listen all around the world, different gaming clubs, different communities all around, and it'll be fun to hear all of your stories of and letting people know, because it's super fun. And I think, like I saw earlier in the chat, someone was just asking, how's that even happen? How do you even do that? I think, Lord Vladkek was asking. So, yeah. It sounds amazing. Sounds super fun. And honestly, you make me excited. Your enthusiasm for Khorne is really one of the only few things that gets me excited about that Khorne force. Because it's a weirdly thinking man's army to work your arse off for it. I mean, Archaeons is just incredible piece. And actually fascinating to see how good Archaeon's War Scroll is. I'm not really sure how adaptable. I think there's lots to say about it. Probably could do a whole show talking about just Archaeon, the War Scroll, versus some of the other larger pieces, Nagash, Alarielle's Teclis, and how they dominate or don't dominate in some situations. I actually think the more I've seen Teclis play, the more I'm like, I'm just very meh about Teclis at the moment. I think that there are probably some better plays, but it just feels like you play them so... It's such an important integral piece to the army as a whole that you spend so much time defending. Whereas Archaeon's this exact polar opposite. Yeah. Whereas he is the army, and he just goes and does stuff, and then the rest of the army's like, "Go on, mate, you've got this." Like that, and it like
yeah,
it feels like. Yeah. Go on,
after absolutely right. No, go on. You finish your point. So I just agree with you wholeheartedly in terms of Teclis is your. Teclis needs his bubble, whereas Archaeon's like, get away from me, helpers. I'm no Glutos or Scullion. I need no wagon. I need no troops. I just need some buffs. It just goes wallop. It's brilliant. I mean, it does create some feel-bads because you can just murder like 50, 60, 70% of someone's army over a double activation. But it's, the way that these god characters work, I think... Teclis isn't as fun to play as Archaeon. I think that's the learning, isn't it, Rob? I think I've rambled on quite enough. And thankfully, the picture you're seeing on screen is my
so just getting ready for more of a ramble. Please, Ark, thank you for subscribing. Owen, I've loved listening to it. Like, there's nothing more exciting than listening to players be excited about having played some games. And again, obviously doing the stat center, and I think next week Ziggy said that we're going to have actual stats. We do actually have all of the stats already from the weekend. That's already been typed up. Big shout out to my man Joe for putting that in there. But next week we'll be able to visualize some of this data, which will be super fun. But as much as the data is very relevant and very important, and when we do get to it, that'll be fun. We are a narrative channel after all, and hearing these stories are really, they're just what we do it all for. Like, honestly, like, they're what I do it for. Like, I was loving it. Like, my thing from the weekend now, watching Steven play, I'm like, okay, how do I summon the most spawn? That's all I want to do now. Like, I don't want to do anything else. I'm like, how do I summon the most spawn? So it's like, you're losing. I'm like, no. That's 9 spawn. Yeah? Like, forgive it, the chat with 18 times 5 Blade Guys Revenants. He's not trying to win. He's trying to have fun. And I think sometimes that's worth. So what's this picture on the screen?
Oh, that's just, there was a cheeky best painted, which is basically a screen grab from, setting up your army in TTS. And I called it Archeon Rides on the Tithe. And I want to start collecting box, Rob. I feel like a child.
Oh, really?
I want to start collecting box because they voted, and I was really happy about that. So that was a really nice 3-2. Some amazing memories, some really good times with some good people, some great Warhammer players, and lovely people. And I would just
what start collecting box are you going to choose?
Slaves to Darkness, of course.
Of course, another Kark Lord. Can't go wrong with another Karkadrak Lord ever. And a couple of questions that we had in the chat, which I think are really valuable, from JP and I can't remember who else asked. No, it was Hawkeye. Number one, is Archeon Corn list something that you would take to an actual event, like real life?
Yeah, he's behind me, but I'm too scared to paint him at the moment. So yes, that will be OBR and Archeon Corn are going to be my armies when we get back to playing. So 100%, it's brilliant. Yeah.
Second question was: is there anything from your list you'd change?
I might try Morton's list because I don't think it's either buff the crap out of him and push him into your opponent's army. I think I'm maybe worrying a bit too much about screening him, and that's my defensive nature. I think I'm going to go balls out, double War Shrine, because if you go double War Shrine, he had Killing Frenzy, so the heads, the 6 head attacks were hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, and the tail attacks hit on 3s rather than 4s, which with the inherent reroll 1s makes a real difference. So I think. I might try Morton's list, to be honest. So props to the King of Corn. That was on the line between myself, Orkman, and Morton. So Morton is King of Corn.
There was a lot of big players in there. Right. So let's talk about the actual results from the weekend then. And let's go over to this. So you guys know, if you tuned in over the weekend, of course, who the actual winner was, which was Antu, with his Change Host Eternal Conflagration list. 2x6 Screamers, 2 Exalted Flamers, all in Change Host Battalion. Lord of Change with a great little artifact, a Fate Master as well, so it wasn't a 1-drop, there was a 2-drop. A great artifact with that +1 to wound around the Lord of Change. You already want to be -1 to hit because you're around the Lord of Change anyway, because that gives you -1 to hit. Then that +1 to wound in a bubble. Mental. Let me just tell you, mental, Owen. Like, made the math crazy. You ended up with Flamers either hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, or hitting on 2s because they wound on 3s anyway. Yeah, so +1 to wound on 2s, and they hit on 3s anyway. They hit on 4s. If they've got an exalted nearby, it's 3s, or if you're targeting 10 or more models, it's 2s. 2s and 2s. Rend 1, damage D3. And he had so the 2 units of 6 Flamers, 38 shots. 3s and 2s, -1, D3 damage. Like, he fired, and then 2 Exalted Flamers, so it's another 6 shots from each of those, so 12 shots. So 50 shots. Hey, Jacob Berry, big love to you in the chat. What a gorgeous man. Oh, I love Jacob Berry. Now, his path to victory for Antu was, he beat Kharadron Overlords, Tzeentch, Kharadron Overlords again in round 3, which we streamed, which was very close. There were some clutch rolls. He also had, very importantly, he had Fold Reality on his Lord of Change, which he dropped to turn a unit of 2 Flamers back into a unit of 6, which was pretty devastating.
What? You can use Fold Reality not just on pinks. You can use it on Flamers.
Yeah, you can use it on
Flamers. Fuck off. Fuck it.
It was really good. One of the things to talk about with actually that play is I normally run Flamers in 3s because I can count them as battle lines, so I don't have to take brims and other little bits. And also I get an extra shot because the Pyroclastic gets an extra shot, so it's basically 9 shots, an additional shot. So if you take them in 3s, you end up with an extra shot per 1, which I find quite useful. Fold Reality on that unit 6 was a real clutch play and super, super useful. And then the final, we saw him play against Steve Follow's Tzeentch Archeon, which Steve threw in, and then the Flamers just like burnt to death in like over 2 turns. But some fun devolve plays. Go back and watch that game. Super fun. Some fun devolve plays. Stephen with an amazing spawn play on round 4, which is super worth watching. That game against Matt Goddesborough to go see. Loved that match. Super fun. Yeah, so that was his path to victory. Now this is a list that's more than a year old now. Like, the Tzeentch book's a year old. That Eternal Conflagration Change Host list is a year old. There were already loads of Tzeentch lists there anyway. It was the most popular faction. 7 of the 50 players were Tzeentch. And there's loads to break down about it, but I think my key takeaway was the output. So those Flamers, very fragile, of course, 2 wounds each, 5 up save. But the fact that they are just 100% gonna nuke a thing. Like with the Exalted Flamer, it's 3s and 3s. In Internal Conflagration, rend 1, D3 damage from 10 shots. Like, that's 10 shots from 3 of them. So, like I said, 38 shots coming out of 6 of them. It's just a wild amount of damage. And being able to punch through Archeon, being able to punch through Arcanauts. Like, we saw one Exalted just blow 10 Arcanauts off the board. And I think that's a good conversation with what we were talking about at the start of the show about those DPS checks. Because while Change Host is fairly fragile, ignoring kind of the pinks to a degree, I know you can't really ignore them. The output that they can put out is devastating, like truly devastating. And it was quite interesting to see play. Like honestly, still interesting to see play this time. Like, and I would say one of the reasons I think it's very interesting as well is because there was no Deepkin there. There was no Deepkin. Like, I feel that they would suffer to Deepkin. Anything that could fly over their lines and get into them, like we saw Archeon. We saw Archeon do a big baller play, charge over a unit of screens and get into the Flamers. As soon as he touched them, they evaporated, of course. They were just, like, 6 of them were just gone. So you just got to get to them. And if you got the right tools, but there was no one at the event with Deepkin. No one there to challenge them. And I think still a very viable list. You played it, I know, before, Owen. You got any thoughts on the Change Host?
My surprise really on Antu's run is just the fact that like Caradron Overlords are often seen as the pick to counter Tzeentch in general. I don't know if that counts for this because who outranges who in that? They've obviously got screens in the Tzeentch force, but generally you think that the big bin chicken can go down with most Caradron armies, most Caradron lists, right? Yeah. Or am I wrong there? I thought
no, you could, but he didn't go after the Lord Change. He went after the Flamers. So when he played against the KO, I think the right target priority was to go after the Flamers, but Antu used all of his Destiny dice to make those saves against some of those big damage shots that were coming into the Flamers, which was a good decision as well, because he got down to both units of 6 went down to 2 units of 2 Flamers, chained, and then Fold Reality back 4 of them out of 1 unit. 2 into 1 unit in 1 turn, and the next turn 4 back into the other. So he got 6 Flamers back over the course of the game, and he also managed to get it was just very, very useful for him to be able to put those on, and that pushed him out. It was honestly tenterhooks. Khorne, if KO had got the priority role, they just shot them off, and it was a weird game to watch actually. I mean, the KO versus the Change Host list, because Change Host deployed in a very defensive bubble as much as it could. It was on Blade's Edge. They obviously got the priority, and all of the KO were in one corner. 3 frigates with Arcanauts inside and a boat in one corner. And if you showed someone that game, they'd be like, "Oh man, what is going on here?" Like, and Change Host just moved forward. They zoned out as much as they could. They KO dropped in. They put the vortex down. They unleashed hell, and they were just like, "Here we go." And then they didn't. And then they didn't get the priority roll. Had they got the priority roll, that was their game. Like it was a bit like you were talking about. Like it was a bit 0-1. It was just absolute, which is I think how KO plays. And it was unfortunate because then they just couldn't come back. So just a really good army, a free teleport in the army as well. But I think the thing to take away about Antu's list is how considered he is as a player, like how thoughtful he is, and how much he makes sure he doesn't make any mistakes or make the wrong decisions, and also very importantly, just how much output that there is available in the army. I think that's the key point. Very, very interesting.
My key point, Rob, would be basically one of those memes, one of those how it started, how it's going memes. So it would be how it started, and you've got a picture of that classic snooker table green, somebody playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle in about 1994, and you've got some rows of troops, and you've got some artillery, and you've got some cavalry on the flanks, and maybe a wizard in the middle, and it's all lovely. And then how it's going, and you've got a load of sky dwarfs nestled up in one corner of the board, and then a load of spaces and lizards turtled up in one corner of the board, and like Games Workshop going, what have we done here then? This doesn't look much like a battlefield. But anyway, that's just a silly aside.
So Oliver Dempsey just brought up a question in the chat about Archeon. Now, as I understand it, Archeon re-rolled a charge. So he re-rolled a charge, and then Kairos changed the result of the re-roll charge into a 6. As I understand it, and I spoke to some people afterwards, super okay. That's super okay. It's different to Destiny dice, and it's also different to Master of Magic. I think a lot of people referencing an FAQ. It's super techy. But as I understand it, and as a couple of people who I spoke to, and I spoke to Nico, and that's pretty much my go-to on some of these things, we're all good. We're all good, and that's super okay. I don't know if you've encountered that before, Owen.
Is that when Kairos changes the... Because I know that there is a bit of discussion, and I talked to Steve before our game about Kairos's Oracle of Eternity rig. There's the interaction with when you auto-6 a run. Is that what you're referencing, or are you more referencing about the charge?
So just to clear everyone up on the exact interaction, Archeon made a charge. He failed the charge, so he re-rolled the charge. Yeah? So that uses a CP, command ability to re-roll the charge. After the charge has been re-rolled, he chose one of the dice results to be a 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, what a lot of people are referencing is there was an FAQ update in February to how Destiny dice are used, and that it's before modifiers. Yeah.
Yes.
But that is a different to the War Scroll ability that Kairos has. It's also different to the Mastery of Magic interaction that people are talking about, which you find on the Lord of Changes War Scroll. So I know that's super techy and like super dull for some people, but that's applicable, and that's because that's Kairos's ability versus a Destiny dice, which are different abilities. I know they feel like they're the same. You're like, I'm picking a 6. You're like, sweet. It's like, I'm picking a 6 with Kairos. You're like, sweet, but they're worded differently. So I just thought I'd bring that up because there was a lot of conversations there about that, which is super okay. Like good.
There is another conversation which I still don't know the answer to, which is basically if you roll, say, a run and Kairos changes the dice to a 1, if you've auto-turned it to a 6, it says that the dice is treated as being a 6, not is a 6. So can Kairos further modify it? Because even if he modifies it, it's still the same dice, so is it still being treated as a 6? That's one which I would love some clarity on, whether how Kairos interacts with using Forward to Victory or whatever the one is called when you auto 6 a run. Anyway, I fear that we're going way deep.
No. One of those things that's going to come up. This is one of the things that I think is going to come up. Actually, I had a little quick think about this as well because this is a tournament coverage show. Like it's meant to be stats, we're meant to be talking about stuff, but it's tournament coverage. One of those things that I think I'm going to do, maybe towards later at the end of the week or next week, is I'm just going to put like an FAQ like set out because some of them are just not clear, and TOs around the world are going to all make independently different decisions. I don't have a dog in any race. It's not the important point. It's just like here's yes no, here's a yes no, and like have some people put that information to like, and then it's like cool. We can just use that and you don't have to argue. You can argue what do they mean versus what they don't mean. And that's come up, like it's not a distraction. I think it's a really good question because that's come up in some of your events as well, Owen, right? And you've had to make a decision. But sometimes those decisions are different to what other TOs have made. And I think that's going to be one of those interesting things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, okay. So the next thing was who went for... So Antu won with Change Host. And then in the 4-1 bracket... Alan joins with his Zinch force with Archeon, Kairos, and Be'lakor. I know you wanted to talk about that bit. Marcus Fredrickson with his Kharadron Overlords, which was the highest performing KO, and it was Barak Thring, so it wasn't Ziflin. 5 KO armies, 3 of them were Zilfin, with Vortexes or Demon Rift, and 1 Barak Thring with 20 Hearthguard Berserkers. One of my favourite lists. I really like that list. What did you think of it?
Yeah, amazing. I didn't get the opportunity to see it play at all. And there was quite a lot of questions, actually, through the course of the lists being in. Like, a couple of people were like, is this list illegal? And you can clear up that basically Barak Thring, because he's got way over the allocated amount for allies, but Barak Thring allows you to take 1, much like Cities of Sigmar, Barak Thring allows you to take 1 in every 4 as a Dwarden unit. So he took... 20 Hearthguard, and he took a Rune Smiter, and he also took 10 Volkites, and he was able to do that by the Volkites and the Hearthguard being the one in every 4, and then the Smiter to be his, to be an ally. But yeah, basically he's got sweet boats that can fly around and ended riggers, and then he's got 20 Hearthguard that can just pop up and blow something up. Cool, really cool to see it, because you do see, I've seen Thring lists which are Thring lists with Gotrek, which I think is cool, and he's Dwardin and he can benefit from the prayers and stuff like that. But I'm not sure. No, he can't benefit from the prayers. Sorry, I'm being stupid. That's a Fire Slayers thing. But yeah, I didn't see it play, but it's nice to see something that isn't Vortex and Zilfin and boats. Right, it had another angle, a similar, to be honest, a similar angle to what the KO normally does, doesn't it? It pops up 9 inches away and blows something up, but normally does it with guns rather than hammers. So yeah, he went.
I liked it. It gave. If you watch KO play or you play with KO, I feel that they lack a thing, and I think that unit of 20 Hearthguard Berserkers brought in actually gives them that other thing. It gives them very much like let's say we talk about Archeon. Archeon does the thing. The Hearthguard Berserkers could do the thing, and everyone else can dance around it. Otherwise, you're just dancing all the time. And as much as I miss dancing, you want someone who stands. You want your mate who sits at the side, just nods his head. That's the Hearthguard Berserkers. Everyone else doing their dancing.
So Hearthguard Berserkers are seat dancers at the disco. You know, like when you go to a rave and you get there early and you're about 15 or whatever, and you're not quite sort of confident enough to go and dance in the middle, so you just bop on your chair. It's just a whole load of leg movement, some shoulders. Yeah, definitely. HGBs, Hearthguard Berserkers are the seat disco dancers.
They definitely are. Morton with his corn, he came up there. Then another Morton with Seraphon Thunder Lizard. So even though there are only 2 Seraphon armies, and both of them wouldn't what we consider to be like the top techie play to win the tournament, still went 4-1. Mitch, 35 Blight Kings with the Blight Cyst and Glutos, that -1 aura, pretty terrifying. Trogdor with his Caradron Overlords playing, and another KO in 4-1 as well. Wow, Nicholas with his KO, and then Steve follows with his Zinch. So 3 KO there. That's wild. That's fascinating. So is it 3 or 2? Yeah, 3 KO. three of the. Wait, is it? Yeah, 3 of the 5. Wow, going 4-1. Pretty impressive. What do you think about that, Owen?
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously the law of averages and good people taking good armies, but, Zinch and KO were the most heavily represented, and they're, again, the most heavily represented, in the rankings. Jacob Berry's just asked, what did the Seraphon player lose to? Let's have a little look. Very interesting.
Well, if you guys want to go and follow this particular event, I've just put the link in the chat for you guys, so you guys can go and see and follow through. We also next week maybe we'll have some blow by blow information about some of this data.
I can tell him that Jacob that it was the Khorne Archeon which beat Seraphon. So that was his one loss.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So that was the weekend. Super fun. Battle of Copenhagen is going to be a real world event that you guys can go to next year when it's back on. So I encourage you guys to do so. Sven, Mr. Tiger, all those guys, just great dudes. Super in love with Warhammer, and they're going to put on a great show. I'm pretty certain about it. They seem like a great team. So talking about ongoing events that we've got at the minute is the Butcher's Tribe event. So Pask's AOS team event. Very, very popular at the moment. So we had the pool system before where there were pools of 4 teams, and we've ended up with some winners. And now we've started to see some of these play out. Owen, do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, I mean, we're still just in the I think that this Battle of Copenhagen, quite a lot of people played at that this weekend, which meant that they delayed playing their Butcher's Tribe events, much to Pask's frustration, I'm sure. But we do have somebody through to the semi-finals. So this is the Seraphones, a team of American players. They have beaten Steve Follow's team. So Steve, team SYM. I thought that they were going to perhaps go all the way to the final, but yeah, they were knocked out. So this is Steve, Lewis Swan, and Scrubby Dave. If I remember correctly, they had Seraphon, which was Thunder Lizard, Triple Basti, a Zinch Archeon, and then a classic Ogres list. They got done by
Your Bud Stonehorns.
Yeah, those are the lads, and they got beaten by the Seraphones, who were running Fangs of Sotek Seraphon, I'm pretty sure, and then Ogres and Bone Reapers. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Bone Reapers might have beaten the Seraphon, which was the clutch match there.
Wow.
So the Seraphones are through to the semi-final. They're going to face off against a Swiss team or Team Bin. I believe that they're doing quite well. Luke Morton and Simon Hall and Dan Bradshaw, I think that they look good to go through there. So we might see Seraphones versus Bin. And then in the Alpacas New European Alliance tie, there's still a lot to be played for there. And the same between Fiction and the Bad Moon Loons. We're 1-0 up. Fiction.
The UK Civil War is
indeed,
that round
yes.
one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. By the way, my reaction to absolutely anyone when it's like insert faction beat Seraphon, I go, wow. Actually, just anyone that you could have put in there, like OBR, yes, but just anyone. I think is a key part there.
So I think that by next week we should know who all the semi-finalists are, because the round finishes this week. I have a rather bonkers Tzeentch Host Arcanum list that I'm playing my Bone Reapers into, which is going to be quite interesting. And then we have our Tzeentch list, which is 40 pinks in Host Duplicitus facing off against Idneth Deepkin. So yeah, interesting. It's a shit mission though. That's the only problem.
What's the mission?
Places of Arcane Power. So it's quite difficult. It's good for me because he can bring his Tzeentchian demon heroes onto the objectives, and I can shoot them all off with catapults, hopefully. So fun times for all.
I hate that battle plan.
But then we've also got another team event kicking off, Rob, with another, loads of players on TTS.
The World's AOS team event organised by Matt Tyrell. So actually on Thursday, me and Adam Mumford are going to go through the stats of the teams, nice. And what we're gonna be looking at there. So we're going to do that. We're going to do a whole show on that on Thursday. That's going to be super fun. So really looking forward to that. So if you guys are interested in listening to that, now one of the quick kind of caveats, real quick, because there's no point ignoring it. Elephant in the room. So the restrictions were that each player had to bring an army from the same Grand Alliance. From different Grand Alliances. Grand Alliances. So only one Order army, only one Chaos army, one Destruction, one Death, which has ended up in like an incredibly polarized meta, like a very. It's hilarious is all I'm gonna say. It really kind of like makes us all aware. I think when you look at that snapshot, you think, okay, that's a mistake. That's no disrespect to the TOs in any way. I wish them all the luck in the world. We're going to be helping doing some stuff for it. But more importantly, there's just a very big discrepancy in a lot of those different armies, and you're also really pigeonholing an entire Grand Alliance into playing in a particular way, because really you've got Death and Destruction who just don't have as many battle tomes, and they just don't have as many options. Ultimately, they are I can only build my army really one way with some of these battle tomes that aren't particularly strong. So then the other armies are just going to kick them in the face. That's a bit of a shame. Did you see the breakdown?
I haven't, but I can probably imagine what it's going to be. And as a side note from the weekend, top Destruction was the Sons of Bahamut list, which came in about 26th with the 3-2, and then top Death was OBR. So no surprises there. But yeah, I think that much like we were talking about at the top of the show in terms of there's the haves and the have-nots, I think you have that across the Grand Alliances as well. And whilst you might get the odd Death or Destruction player, popping their head up and getting a win with a big war, or getting a win perhaps with a Bone Reapers, like the real strength in the game tends to be between Chaos and Order, and that's then reflected by you get that in singles players tournaments, and I'd imagine that it's even more kind of boiled down with these teams, in that within those Grand Alliances there's probably not huge amounts of variety outside of Seraphon, Deepkin, Lumineth, Daughters, probably.
Yeah. So I've actually got the stats actually here. Thank you to Mr. Adam Munn for putting them together. But we're going to be talking more of these very quickly. Tzeentch are 52% of the Chaos forces in total. They're actually with Saves to Darkness being 20. The next biggest one, Nurgle, being 16. So really, it's Tzeentch. Over half of them are Tzeentch. If you're going over to Order, over half of them are Seraphon. 13 of those, with 16% being DOK and 12 being Deepkin. So again, like it's just 13 Seraphon, and the next most popular is 4 Daughters of Cain. it's 13 Tzeentch, then the next most popular being 5 Saves to Darkness, and then in Death it's split between Flesh Eater, Courts and OBR, 9 each, and then in Destruction it's 10 armies for Ogres and only 5 for Iron Jaws as the next most popular one. Oh, and Big War is also 5 as well. So Iron Jaws and Big War take up half of it, with Ogres again being 40% of that. So like it's so polarized ultimately. I really don't think that's the way to do it. I think what you want to do, I understand what the idea is try to develop diversity in lists, but actually weirdly has actually pigeonholed the list a lot more. Like that's one of those interesting things. So I think always worth having that conversation. So that's, but we're going to talk more about that in the future. That's 25 teams, 4 people each. That's starting soon, and then we've got upcoming events around the world. Specifically this weekend over in Australia, there's Vic GT, South Australia GT, is the Saggy GT in Adelaide. 43 players, no Anvil of Apotheosis. Does that require a note? I'm sorry.
No auxiliary objectives, Rob.
Oh, that's like I'm having a stroke. Yeah, okay. No auxiliary objectives. That's weird. What? So how come?
I don't know really. I think it's but talking about the binary nature of the game, it makes it even more binary. I mean, the Aussies do their own thing, right? So, who am I to question what they do? I think it makes it easier for the TOs, but yeah, there's no auxiliary objectives, no minors, and both events. So you got the Saggy T in Adelaide, 43 players, and then the Vic GT in Bendigo with 70 players. Both have very similar packs. So no auxiliaries, no minors, and missions in advance, Rob. We had missions in advance for Battle of Copenhagen. Thoughts?
I'm pro it.
Really? You're pro missions in advance?
Yeah.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons. Like, ultimately, prep is good anyway, irregardless. Like, having to, jump on, just knowing the rules, just knowing how an event, but otherwise, so you're asking, it depends. If you're already someone who plays loads, you're prepped for all 18 missions. If you're someone who doesn't play a lot, you're not prepped at all, in any way. So, giving someone the 5 they're going to play, I think when you include something like Place of Arcane Power, you generally skew the list writing anyway. But I think that there's nothing worse than your list just turns up and can't play the mission. There's nothing, you're not giving the general any level of preparation in any way, shape, or form. And I get it, you're you need to think about it, but you're asking people to think about 18, missions against 22 armies, or whatever it is. That's a lot. Just be it's these 5 missions. You're oh, someone had an advantage because of it. It's well, then they would have, it's minimal. It's minimal. I really think it's minimal. I think the idea that you can tailor your list so perfectly to 5 missions ahead of time that you can defeat everyone, I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's reliable at all. It's what? Chain shows are going to somehow be different. So, the Fangs of Sotek list is going to be different. What? They're not going to take as many eels. It's just wild. I think it's a wild argument against it. So I just think have them ahead of time, and then the people further down the tables can just be cool. I know 5 missions really well now. I can prep a little bit. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm just thinking on the fly here, which is always a bit dangerous. One thing, just Cinderfall Gaming in the chat says, yeah, missions are always in advance in Australia. Yeah, and that's an interesting one. I have found that you get a lot of, with TTS, you're playing with people from different countries, and there's some you don't get you don't do the missions in advance, or you do, or that you have these international gaming conventions that don't always pass over. So yeah, obviously respect if that's the way they do it. For me, I don't know. Surely if you've got a brilliant book and you've got loads of options, then it's a win. It doesn't it give good books more advantage?
You're already taking those options anyway. You're the powerful armies are mission agnostic. They don't care what they play into because their army's designed that way anyway. Like, whereas, like, you know, it might be super clutch as an Ogre's army to be like, okay, we're definitely playing, because they don't have a lot of board presence generally when you're playing Yobard Stonehorns. We're definitely going to be playing Scorched Earth. Like, do I need 20 Noblars in my list? Like, is that something I really should think about? Whereas Seraphon are like, cool, I already have a throwaway 10 Skinkman unit. Like, it means nothing to me. Change Hosts are like, cool, I've already got 10 Brimstone Horrors. Eels are like, all right, already, I play this mission anyway. So I just don't...
Okay, yeah, and Cinderfall Gaming's making some really excellent points in the chat. So maybe it's just the fact that I'm a true Khorne player at heart, and I don't like Tzeentch, so I don't like change. So I just don't want. I'm a curmudgeon old bastard now. So I just, yeah. But then again, maybe I would like. Yeah, it was really nice actually with Copenhagen. I did tweak my list based on the mission pack. So yeah, okay, cool. Let's maybe I'll do it for my next Hammer Time. We'll see how it goes.
I honestly, I think, and it also allows new people ease of access. I think that's actually really, really important. So yeah, you could print out all 5 of them. Like, you put them out at your event, so people are like, cool, I know what's happening. I don't know. I just don't think it makes any difference. I think it made a massive difference when we had realms. That's why it was important, because you could really fuck with them. Like, when people were using actual realms, I think, like, the old ones, not the new ones, which are basically superfluous. The old ones, I think that was actually, like, a major issue, because you're like, oh, you could do some really janky stuff with that. A question coming up in the chat talking about upcoming events. When is the next Hammer Time event?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to keep myself tied to doing it every month. And I have actually really enjoyed playing for a change. But I want to give the other tournaments a bit of room. So there's a lot going on. I reckon. What are we now? We're into March. I reckon we'll do one in early April. I'm going to message you about some Hammer Time ideas, TTS and okay, cool. Cheers, Cabbage. Yeah. So yes, soon, early April. I might be collaborating with a few people. There's some ideas bouncing around, but yeah, there will be a Hammer Time soon, and there will be a physical Hammer Time. We're going to talk about some physical UK events in a second, but I'm not quite ready to jump in there. I'm erring on the side of caution.
Yeah. So double event. 113 players playing over the weekend in Australia, both in Sagi GT and Vic GT. Super exciting. We're going to do a bit of a breakdown of the Vic GT lists on Friday, because thanks to Joel for filling in a sheet for me and getting in touch with me. So big thanks. And also thanks to Chris last week, Stradis, who was sent me a whole bunch of stuff, everything that was happening over in Queensland. So those guys are just great dudes. And then over in the 27th, 28th of March, this is on you, Owen. You pronounce it.
This is in Yekaterinburg, which is in Western Siberia in Russia. Yes. So, yeah, I don't think it's a million miles away from Novosibirsk, where they had the Ice Hammer GT. It's kind of like, it's east of Moscow by hundreds and thousands of miles, kind of over near the Kazakhstani border. So, yes, 72 players. I have been given a link to the lists, but they're all in Cyrillic, which is like Russian. So I couldn't, they could be running like, I don't know, 10 Grimwrath Berserkers, or there's some nutter in Australia running 10 or 6 Grimwrath Berserkers or something. They could be running anything.
I'm honestly going to try and work out those lists. That's the plan. I'm going to try and work out and do a review on it, because I think that's great. So that's in Western Siberia. 27th of March, Grand Hammer is a TTS one-dayer, the Dutch organisers, and there's some sign-ups are open. So if you guys want to play some TTS on the 27th of March, there is a new event, Grand Hammer. So you guys can get involved with that. Is there a link? We'll put a link to that in the show notes, maybe, Owen?
Yeah, and I've just put it in the chat there. If you go to Tabletop Tier, that's where you can sign up. I'm not sure. I think they've got around about 20 players. I think I might play again. I'm signed up at the moment. But yeah, Gutsman's there, Tavi, Orkman, Luke Willoughby, all the usual crew are assembling. So yeah, that's it's a new guy set up a new TTS Discord and everything. So yeah, that's Grand Hammer on the 27th. And how do you feel?
Can we leave the future UK events till another, because everything I think is available to change at the moment, and I think there are some big events like Bobo's announced, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's announced, but we'll wait until we've got some more proper confirmation for that, and we could put up a screen and some other stuff. How does that sound?
Mate, it's a democracy, right? We run this show together, so if that's what you'd like to do, that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay?
We'll chat about that at another point. Because we're still, as much as it's exciting, and listen, I'm thrilled about the idea of events coming up, doing coverage of Bobo. Bobo current format, just really quickly, is meant to be 200 people events with the top 8 qualifying, and then those 2 top 8s from those 2 events come and play at the TSN arena. That's the idea. So that's 16.
Wow.
That's how many we can fit here, and then we'll do the live coverage of the whole thing. So that's super cool. Super Series stuff, loads of other stuff. It's just like at the minute, it's like, is it gonna happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I want it to, like I desperately want it to, but like it's worth just holding off properly until we can get the information real. All right, sweet. Owen, I've kept you so long. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
That's all right. I think I've been the one bollocking on about Archeon and Korn, so you don't need to apologise.
I think everyone's loved that. I'm going to just say that I've loved it. Next week we might return with actual data and graphs. I say this every week. I need a lot of you. This is really weird. I need a lot of you to buy less things from Wilco, or more things. I'm not really sure. Otherwise, I can't make it happen. It's a very complicated conversation. Okay. But that'll be fun to actually look at some data, looking through it all. That'll be really fun. Owen, you got any other bits for us?
Just cousin Adam, regular shout out. It's his 40th birthday on Wednesday. So welcome to the club. And have a great birthday for Adam on Wednesday.
A big shout out to Adam Jackson. Happy birthday to him. Thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Don't forget you can join us tonight on the Age of Sigmar show. Me, Dan, James, Nathan, which will be super fun. Very much looking forward to that. And then if you want more Age of Sigmar stuff, you're going to get it on Thursday and Friday. Thursday looking at the AOS World team lists. Friday looking at the VicGT list. So loads of stuff for you still to talk about and listen to if you enjoy that kind of thing. And thank you for tuning in. You guys are great. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Stay hydrated. Drink loads of water. Owen, you got anything to take us out? Just sword and sword?
Mate, I thought you were going to make me sing then or something. I'll take us out with a lovely little see you later. Okay, bye.
Join us again next week, tonight, tomorrow, whenever you want. You're all great. Loads of love. Look after yourself. Stay healthy.